Welcome to the Fitness Franchise Business Secrets Podcast. I'm Forrest Walden, founder and CEO.
Karen Broadwater, president of Iron Tribe.
And today we want to talk about a very important topic. And it's one of the reasons we're doing the show together and one of the reasons we've worked so well together over the last 12 years. Is we are very clear on our roles and what we bring to the table, our natural strengths and wirings that allows Karen as the president to be the integrator and me as the CEO to be the visionary. And it's taken a process to get to this point where we're very comfortable in our skin, very comfortable in our roles. And I want to start with a little story. When I was opening my very first location, it was Fitness Together, completely different model, one-on-one personal training. Rick Sikorsky, the founder and CEO, handed me a copy of the E-Myth, which we've read multiple times since then. But the first time I read it, I was locked into being a personal trainer. I was the product. And if you're not familiar with the E-Myth, it's essentially how you view your business as the business and essentially work yourself out of a job from you're no longer the personal trainer, maybe now you're the manager. And then you hire a manager and you work yourself up and you continue to work yourself up. So love the book. And essentially, if you follow that book to its logical conclusion, you're going to figure out that you need these roles in your business. And on top of the E-Myth, we follow the EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, which also teaches this concept. So essentially what it means is it frees me up to think about where's the business going next, how are we able to grow, what are some new revenue streams we need to bring on, those type things. And it allows Karen to excel in her role, which honestly she's better at than me. And that's the beauty of this, is I'm wired for different things than she is. And so Karen, what does that look like for you as the integrator to allow me to sit in my seat and to allow you to do what you do?
Yeah, we've always kind of joked around about how he paints the walls and I paint the corners. So big vision picture, but a wall would be absolutely hideous if you just painted the walls. So taking the corners, taking the vision, implementing it, and even refining things with you. We butt heads a lot behind the scenes because a visionary may see something that's great for our business, but at the end of the day, if I realize that our team can't carry the weight of that, I have to draw a line, or we have to go back and forth and sharpen each other on how it can fit in the business. So I feel you probably have a lot of companies with some visionaries and they just run with things and everything's on fire. And you may have some companies with only integrators and they really don't grow as much because they're a little more risk adverse. But with us being able to sharpen each other, I know that I'm willing to take more risk with you at the helm, but I think you're also willing to take a step back, realizing I'm seeing the company from all of the people involved and making certain we make really good decisions to not completely burn the boats.
Yeah, and it's a good point. There is some tension there where I have an idea, I want to implement it, and then you're like, hey, great idea, or maybe even not great idea, but hey, the team, they're exhausted right now. And if you hit them with a whole new play, a whole new campaign, a whole new strategy, you're not going to have the buy-in. So there's been plenty of times like, I really want to do this. And you're like, not right now. And then you'll come back and say, hey, do you still want to do that idea? Because I think we could. And sometimes I'm on to the next idea, or sometimes like, yes, let's roll, let's do it. So one of the things I think we've wrestled through is being very comfortable in our roles and not stepping on each other's toes, right? And so I think one of the biggest eye-openers for us was reading the book in the line of the EOS series. So the first one's Traction. The second one is Rocket Fuel. And Rocket Fuel is all about how to have a visionary integrator relationship in your company. And in fact, they talk extensively on most of the most successful business you think of. There is a visionary and an integrator at play. So we read that, and there's a quiz in there where you take it to say how much of a visionary are you and how much of an integrator are you. And it was very affirming to know that I was like 95% visionary and you were like 110% integrator. So we knew that we had the right roles. But I think the biggest eye-opener for me is, and I'll just give you an example. I remember I asked you to train the managers on sales. And so you were glad to, you took it on and you were running it, and I think it was like week 5 or 6. And in my head, I'm thinking, okay, if I don't jump on one of these calls, Karen's going to think Forrest is checked out, he's not around, like he doesn't even know what I'm doing. And so I get on the call.
And I think...
And you think...
He is checking in, he doesn't trust me, he doesn't think I'm good at training sales, has someone talked behind my back, just thinking, come on, step out. I've worked with you forever, I really can do this. And him stepping in was kind of like, back off, I've got this, go do your thing.
And so reading that book, that example, we talked about
Yes.
it. And so I realized, okay, she really does have it. And in fact, if I'm going to show her that I believe she has it, I don't need to check in. Mm-hmm. And I need to trust her enough to know, hey, Forrest, can you step in because I want you to speak to this or you train on this. But let her, if I'm going to give it to her, let her have it. And so I use that one simple example as a way that's just really helped us crystallize how does this role work? And really it comes down to trust.
Yes.
Right? I've got to trust you enough to say it's yours and run with it. And then you've got to trust me enough to know what.
I mean, ultimately, I don't even know if it's the trust in that aspect, because I think we've always trusted each other. We didn't always communicate as clearly on, are you stepping in because you think I need help, or are you stepping in because you feel you need to be seen by everyone else? And I think it even helped us communicating with the team, saying, Forrest is a visionary, we need him to step out and really go in front of us. I'm here to be a shepherd, to take care of you guys. He is a resource if you need him, but let's protect that visionary of who Forrest is. So I feel it wasn't, at least in the last 4 or 5 years, I think we've trusted each other tremendously. It was communicating, do you want me in that meeting? Do I need to do this thing? Versus you just assuming you have to be so bored in some meeting you don't even want to be in.
Well, I think it's a good point that we went to the staff and said, this is why, well, first of all, these are our roles.
Yes.
You probably already realized that, but let's be clear about it. Yep. These are our roles, and this is why you may not see Forrest in the weekly manager meeting or the monthly whatever. You will see him in the quarterly meeting, and you're very good about saying, Forrest, you need to lead the quarterly meeting, you need to teach content, they need to see you, but guarding my time and making sure where I can excel, then I can show up and do my thing. Yep. Otherwise, maintenance kills me. Maintenance is terrible. She rocks at maintenance. And again, those are just core differences of visionary and integrator. So let's back up a minute. Someone listening, maybe they have one location.
Right.
Maybe they have 2 locations, and they're sitting here looking at us thinking, okay, you guys have 30 locations. I can see how you could have that overhead and that structure. But how does this apply to the one location owner?
I think we actually do have an example, because ultimately you were a one location owner. When we first started our tribe, and I was the administrative assistant. So I don't think it always has to be the CEO, president, but definitely someone that if you're the one location owner, you might need an assistant, or one of your coaches has some admin skills that can speak straight to you, that can refine things that you do. And I really think that's just what we evolved into. When I started day one, I wasn't a president. You weren't the CEO of a company. You were running a location. And over time, we grew together in trust and communication and skill sets. So wherever you are now, it's whatever skill set you need. If you need admin help, if you need support, if you need someone to meet with and sharpen each other each week, then I think ultimately finding that person that you trust, can communicate with. And honestly, like we always call it a getter-doner. I was always a getter-doner. It's very different to switch into leadership, which is probably an entirely another podcast.
It is.
But I think when you start, it's a visionary who has good ideas and a getter-doner, not a hole finder, because I think someone who finds too many holes is going to be a naysayer and bring you down, and we had to work through that for a while. So find somebody with solutions and the ability to execute, and I really think that would be your integrator that could potentially ascend to help you scale long-term.
Well, that's a great point, because Karen, you do a lot of public speaking now. You're on podcasts, like people see you, and we kind of joke, people try to hire you, right? Yeah. And people will reach out to me and say, where do I find a Karen? And honestly, you don't find a Karen, you build a Karen, right? And you give her responsibility. Now, she's got amazing capacity and amazing work ethic, but over 12 years, she hasn't knocked the cover off the ball on everything. She's made mistakes. And so we've had to work through and give her rope and allow her to learn on the job, where now one of the reasons we can have this page and do this show is because we've made all the mistakes in the book. So what we're teaching from is just an overflow of all the different things we've had to do do over the years, but ultimately you build a Karen. So to your point, I mean, she started an administrative assistant. I'm sure you've watched her show on her story, but has really worn every hat in the company, which I think makes you so much more effective as an integrator, because you know what those coaches are going through, what those managers are going through. Like, you've run gyms, you've come in the corporate office, and then you've gone back in gyms, and you've come back out. You've visited all our franchise locations. So you really understand what needs to happen at really every level of the business.
But I also think it helps. I have enough visionary in me, and you have enough integrator in you that you can do the work. Visionary exhausts me over time and kind of scares me a little, whereas integrator exhausts you over time. And so we're able to complement each other to where I always see the vision that you've placed in front. So me conveying it to everyone else is not just a regurgitation, it's a passion. So like, it's in this lifeblood of, as long as you're 2 steps ahead of me, and I think you always should be, of vision and mission and whatever, then whatever it is I can pass down. But the second you slow down, the rest of the company slows down. And so realizing the pressure and the weight of the visionary is genuinely being that passionate person. Obviously you're a quiet, passionate person, but being the passionate person that believes in the business so much allows the integrator to thrive in passing off the mission and continuing to push people to be their best.
Agreed. So let's bring it back to the one location owner. You need to be building someone. First of all, you need to realize, what are your skill sets?
Yes.
Are you a visionary? Are you someone who's always dreaming about, okay, what does a second location look like? What does a third location look like? Or how do I grow this one location bigger and bigger? Like, are you thinking about growth? If so, you need a integrator, a Karen in your life, because what's going to happen is you're going to be like gas brake, right? You're going to try to go out and dream big, and then you're going to try to do all the execution that comes with it, because growth gobbles cash. Growth also creates a ton of work. So if you're trying to dream and build and do all the work, you're going to be exhausted, right? So you need
also
someone.
Lose your team.
Talk about that.
So, I mean, I think I've worked here for 12 years, but prior to me becoming president and genuinely looking at Forrest and telling him I want a place that people want to work, we had high staff turnover. And I think a lot of that is pivoting and changing and not sticking through, or not reteaching, or bringing up, hey, this is why we do this. This is how we do this. This is how you get paid. Like, constantly taking care of the team. A visionary just doesn't realize how much change they're making in a business, because they were already bored, or someone else is still learning what was taught. I mean, it's 3 or 4 months before our team currently even isn't grumbling over something new, much less a visionary is going to change something in a month and a half. They begin to distrust. They begin to think, oh, here they go again, it's another idea. Whereas an integrator can step in and make certain, hey, I've really got a pulse on the team. This is where they are. That is a great idea, but I need 2 months until they can step in, which we talked about a little bit earlier. But
okay, so one location, you want to scale, you want to grow, find someone you can pour into to develop, to balance out the role, right? Typically, you're going to be the visionary if you started the business, and then you bring along an integrator so that when you scale, you're able to delegate some of the things that you can no longer do in your visionary seat. And so most of the business owners, most of the gym owners I talk to have a dream to scale, and they want to do multiple. And this is one of the first conversations I have with them, because I will tell you, the move from 1 to 2 is one of the biggest moves. It's even harder than 2 to 3 and 3 to 4, because all of a sudden you can't be that guy or that girl who catches all the balls. And you don't even realize how many balls you catch when you're in one location, because just your presence alone has an effect on your team, has an effect on your clients. And so when you move to that second location, if you're not thinking through the layers of your organization and how your org chart's going to look, all kind of things will start to happen. And again, that can be a whole nother podcast. I mean, even, I think about, I was talking to a gym owner just the other day, and he's just moved to second location. And I said, let me guess. You walk back in your first location, and your clients say, oh, wow, look who graced us with their presence today. And he was like, yes. And I said, and so then you feel the need to spend more time there and get on the floor so they don't say that about you, right? And then you're thinking, well, I really need to be at my second. So that's all so natural. But when you're not prepared for it, those comments can make you question everything and be like, oh my gosh, maybe I shouldn't scale. So a couple of resources I think we should recommend, and I already talked about them. One, if you haven't read The E-Myth, It is just fundamental to anybody wanting to grow a business. I don't care if you want to scale or not, whether it's 1 or 100. The E-Myth is just a great foundational place to start of, okay, what is my role as the owner of this business, and how do I grow in a way that doesn't wear me out and keep me stuck doing the thing over and over and over? Anything to say on that?
No, E-Myth is a classic.
Okay, so then from there, we've really enjoyed the whole EOS series.
Yes.
And it starts with traction. Let's talk a little bit about traction.
Yeah, traction is just an overview of, I think anybody in business should read it multiple times. It's very thick. There's a lot of content to it, but it gives you a great overview of everything from P&Ls to leadership to how you should work with your team to ranking your team. It's a book I would probably rank above E-Myth as far as when you're in the business, how to run the business. But making a decision on how should you start a business and how, E-Myth definitely.
Yeah, so those are really good. And then we mentioned Rocket Fuel. That's the next one in the
Yes.
series. And then there's several others. I think there's even
How to Be
one
a Great
for...
Boss.
That's,
Love that one.
That was even for what the heck is EOS for your team.
Yes,
so as you
yes.
start to implement some of this stuff, it's a great way for them to say, okay, you see us having these meetings and these rhythms and these cadence. We got core values and vision.
Yep.
And so what does it all mean? And that one's what the heck is EOS?
Yes.
That's been another good one for
But
us.
to speak to Rocket Fuel, I would say my advice on that is highly recommend read it, but read it twice. Read it once through the lens of you're learning yourself once you've tested. If you're an integrator, read through as an integrator, and then read through as a visionary, as if you were one, because it helps you put yourself in their shoes so that you can serve each other better. I think Forrest, even reading it through the eyes of an integrator, his eyes were open like, oh wow, that's how you receive me? Same thing of, is this how I receive him? So I think really realizing, putting yourselves in the other person's shoes through that book was really helpful for us.
So I think in summation, I can legitimately say I would not be where I am in this business in a professional sense, but also in a personal sense. I wouldn't have the ability to take off and go to the lake like I did 4 days this weekend and know that the business is taken care of if this relationship wasn't dialed in and strong and we had each other's back. So from the visionary seat and the CEO seat, I know I couldn't do without what I do without Karen. And then in your seat,
I mean, I wouldn't do anything, at this point, because I wouldn't have the vision to follow necessarily. I think I could be a small business owner, but not by any means to scale of what we're going to do, because I need someone that is bigger than me and greater than me and has a vision that I want to follow.
and she just said something we haven't touched on, what we want to do. So we're not sitting here at 30 saying we're done.
No, gosh,
we
no.
have big goals and big dreams and growth in front of us, but none of that's possible if this isn't super strong and super clear. So whether you're at 1 or multiple and you're looking to grow from 1 to 2 or take your multiple to more than that, I think this is the relationship you've got to get clear and strong before you go and build out the rest of your org chart. So hope you enjoyed it. As always, just drop us ideas of what you'd like to hear, content that you're mulling over, questions that you've had. We've probably done it or tried it or thought about it and didn't do it because she shut me down and I thought it was a great idea. But let us know what you want to hear about and we'd be happy to talk about it on another show. So we will see you guys soon. Thank you.